Hello, I'm Ian. Welcome to my channel. One of the more absurd beliefs that I've come across in the past couple of years is that the Earth is flat. Now, this is such a complete rejection of demonstrable evidence that it's difficult to know whether the proponents of this nonsense are serious or just having a laugh. And what I plan to do in the next two talks is to give a history of flat Earth belief. Mostly I'll be talking about that next week. This week I want to talk about how we came to understand the shape of the Earth and measure it. In ancient days, most people were not interested in the shape of the Earth. A typical conversation about it would go something like this. And that would be the end to the matter. Some people claim, despite the lack of evidence, that the ancients had secret knowledge, that they understood the universe better than we do, that they had spiritual insights that our corrupt and consumerist society has lost. Well, we may be better off without mobile phones, satellite TV and motor cars, but something that all societies agreed upon is health and longevity. The evidence suggests that the ancients were lacking in this respect. We've been using boats for thousands of years, but early seafarers stuck close to shore in sight of land, and they used the land for navigation. When they went out into the ocean, they noticed things. If the Earth were flat, height above the water would not affect the distance to the horizon, misunderstandings about the Rayleigh criteria and airy disk notwithstanding. One of the earliest great voyages of exploration that we know about was by the Greek explorer Pytheas, who came from Marseille. This map is his conjectured voyage. He travelled far enough north to observe the midnight sun and suggested that the moon was the cause of the tides. So I think that by the time Eratosthenes measured the circumference of the Earth in 200 BCE, it was widely accepted that the Earth was spherical. Eratosthenes' original text is not preserved, but we have a version from Cleomedes, who wrote around the turn of the millennium. I'm not going to go through the mathematics of Eratosthenes' calculation. I'll leave that for those of you who are interested to follow it up. But I think that given the potential errors in all the measurements, he was very lucky with his result, which was very close to the modern measured value of approximately 40,000 kilometres. Eratosthenes was not the only astronomer to measure the Earth's circumference. Posidonius, who lived around 100 BCE, determined it from observations of the star Canopus, the second brightest star in the sky, which he measured from Rhodes and Alexandria. His estimate was smaller than that of Eratosthenes, at around 29,000 kilometres. Incidentally, Canopus is called the Old Man of the South Pole in ancient Chinese texts. The observations that Eratosthenes and Posidonius took to measure the circumference of the Earth could easily be done today by any flat earther who wishes to undertake the challenge, and I'd be interested to see if any of them are prepared to do that. The earliest depiction of the globe that we have is this mural, originally from the Bosco Reale villa near Pompeii. It dates from 50 CE and is now in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. As a matter of interest, it suggests a magnetic mountain near the North Pole, a widely held belief explaining the Earth's magnetic field until the 16th century and the works of William Gilbert. And then there's the orb. On the right is the oldest depiction we have of the orb of the heavens lofted on the shoulders of Atlas, and on the left a coin from Constantine the Great, when it's not clear if he's holding the orb of the heavens or of the earth. The dates of both of these are shown in the image. And the orb features heavily in medieval Christian art. Here we have depictions of various rulers from the 14th century. Charles IV in 1356, the Holy Roman Emperor. Charles II of Hungary from 1380s, and Mary of Hungary also from the 1380s. And of course we have Christ as Salvator Mundi, here in a painting by Carlo Crivelli from 1472. And finally we have the physical depictions of the globe. These are all from late medieval, early Renaissance, and behind Erdapfel on the left is the earliest physical depiction of the globe that we have.
They all laughed at Christopher Columbus.
No, they didn't.
When he said the world was round.
Because he didn't. This legend was made up in the 19th century by Washington Irving, the author of the Rip Van Winkle and other stories, and who at the time was United States Ambassador to Spain. There is no truth in it whatsoever. Thank you, Ginger. We'll call you if we need any more of your historical insights. There was disagreement between Columbus and the Spanish authorities, but that was about the size of the Earth, and on this matter Columbus was wrong. He thought that the Earth was smaller than it is, Ptolemy's estimate in the diagram, and that he could reach Asia sailing west. Fortunately for him, the Americas are in the way. In any case, sailing to the Caribbean and back says nothing about the shape of the Earth. Geoffrey Burton Russell, a leading American historian and biblical scholar, has written about the Columbus myth, and I'll read a couple of excerpts from his webpage, and this is from a talk he gave in 1997. It must be reiterated that with extraordinary few exceptions, no educated person in the history of Western civilization from the 3rd century BC onward believed that the Earth was flat. And then later down, nor did this situation change with the advent of Christianity. A few, at least 2 and at most 5, early Christian fathers denied the sphericity of Earth by mistakenly taking passages such as Psalm 104 verses 2 and 3 as geographical rather than metaphorical statements. On the other hand, tens of thousands of Christian theologians, poets, artists and scientists took the spherical view throughout the early medieval and modern church. The point is that no educated person believed otherwise. Now, Russell attributes this myth coming from Washington Irving as down to an anti-clericalism in the wake of the French Revolution. And I think another fact is that it's an attempt to magnify the achievement of Columbus. The voyage that did confirm the shape of the Earth was one by, well, who was it by? I was taught that Ferdinand Magellan was the first person to circumnavigate the globe, but I also learned that he died on the voyage after he was speared in the Philippines. So who did command the first circumnavigation of the Earth? If you are Spanish, you will learn that it was the Basque navigator Juan Sebastian Elcano. He was one of only 18 survivors out of 240 who sailed from Sanlúcar de Barrameda in 1519 and returned in 1522. Elcano is celebrated in Spain, and here are a couple of examples from near to where I live, a street in Fuengirola and a hotel in Malaga. Despite all the illness, murder and death that occurred throughout the voyage, the expedition kept a daily log and found to their surprise that when they reached Capo Verde Islands, they were a day adrift of the local date, 9th of July as against the 10th of July. Gasparo Contarini, a cardinal from Venice, explained this as the result of the apparent motion of the sun as they had travelled west throughout the voyage. In fact, this phenomenon, which indicated the need for the international dateline, was first predicted by, good grief, Ismaili bin Ali bin Mahmud bin Muhammad bin Umar bin Sharan Shah bin Ayub bin Shadi bin Marwan, otherwise known as Abu Fida. And this postage stamp from Syria actually has the dates in Julian rather than the Islamic calendar. The first person to successfully command a vessel that sailed all around the world was Francis Drake in a voyage between 1577 and 1580, over 50 years after the Elcano voyage. Drake navigated using this map by the Belgian cartographer Abraham Ortelius, which is clearly a depiction of a spherical Earth. The clue's in the title. Remember this image from earlier. This is widely used by flat earthers to show that ancient peoples had a better understanding of the shape of the Earth than we do, and they all believed it was flat. Now, I don't know how reliable these images are, but I'll assume they're accurate depictions of the myths of these various groups. And that's just what they are, mythologies. They're not based on any scientific observations or measurements. But I was intrigued to look what was going on outside Europe, particularly in those regions like China, India, and the Islamic world, where we know that there was a large amount of science and technology that wasn't known to the West until later. Not speaking any of the relevant languages is a bit of a disadvantage, so I've had to rely on secondary texts for this. My reference for China is the encyclopedic and authoritative Science and Civilization in China, originally edited by Joseph Needham. And it relates that in early China there were a number of different models of the Earth, including flat and spherical. The one I've illustrated here I find quite interesting. This is a modern day diagram, or at least a 20th century diagram. It consists of a hemispherical dome covering an approximately hemispherical Earth. If we take a figure of 500 metres for a li, the dome is at a height of 40,000 kilometres. I'm surprised that no flat earthers have adopted this model. By the time of Marco Polo in the 13th century, there had been considerable interaction between China and Europe, and it's now difficult to separate different ideas coming in which are originally Chinese and those that have come in particularly from the Islamic world. This is Abu Rayhan Muhammad ibn Ahmed al-Biruni. The wife could be called Brian or Jeremy, I don't know. Anyway, he flourished in the 10th century and is said to be father of Indology, father of comparative religion, father of modern geodesy, going around fathering a lot, and the first anthropologist. He also made many original contributions to astronomy. As we can see here in this translation of his work, you must remember this is written over 1,000 years ago and more than 500 years before Kepler and Newton. He describes observations that he took at Nandana in present-day Punjab. He calculated a radius of the Earth that was about 2% higher than the presently accepted value. And we can see from the contents list of his book that he took many measurements right across from Egypt and through Central Asia. So it's quite clear that by the time of this watercolour in the early 17th century, that the Islamic world, along with the Christian one, all accepted the Earth was a sphere. Measurements of the precise shape of the Earth didn't stop there, of course. And this expedition in the early 18th century was to determine a dispute about the precise shape of the globe between the Franco-Italian astronomer Cassini and the Englishman Newton. That French expeditions to South America and northern Sweden determined that the Newtonian model was the correct one is a credit to their scientific integrity. And the 18th century saw further measurements to determine the density and mass of the Earth. So by the end of the 18th century, all educated people knew that the Earth was a spheroid and there was a good understanding of its size and its mass. So why are there people who believe in a flat Earth? Well, we'll look at that next time when we come up to the present day and we go from ignorance to stupidity. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you've not already done so. Next time we'll look at the development of flat Earth belief from the 19th century to the present day and how we really do go from ignorance to stupidity.